And what have you, because I want to get a little bit more of your personal experience. I mean, the trouble is, as these cycles go on, we all, I mean, not the trouble, but we're all getting more educated on how they look, getting more data from past cycles to color in our expectations for the following cycles. So maybe you didn't really have this foresight in 2017, 2021 as much, but were you getting worried those early parts of those years when there was massive pumps that, like, what if this is it? And then you get a 60, 70, 80% dump and you're like, shit, what did I just do? Um, have you had that feeling before? Or were you just like, hey, I mean, we're just waiting until I'm just wondering, like, how much, because everybody's so aware of the cycles now that I don't think they were as much, obviously, in the previous cycles. So, yeah.
No, and in 2018, when everything was just falling and falling and falling, I wasn't aware of how it really all worked out, and that's when I really started to learn, did a lot of reading, and started to understand that that's how the cycle goes, And then you get the influencers with Hex and everybody saying how different it was, right? So there was that this thing could just run and wouldn't have a cycle because of the mechanics of it and how the staking locked people up, and you really didn't have those big opportunities to sell. Now, I think eventually that's going to play out in some truth. But as with anything, Bitcoin's first cycle, it dumped 95, 96%, whatever it was. The second cycle, maybe only 85. Third cycle was only like 80, whatever. Each time the dump gets less and less of a percentage because it gets spread out into multiple, into hands where it's not as heavily held by some big whales. So it's going to happen with every coin where the cycles get a little bit less. You're not going to have 99% drawbacks anymore because you don't have as many big whales, and they'll slowly get out of the system. Hex is different. The people weren't, and that is true. So you had the same mentality of the other cycle, and it kind of happened that way, and I'll be honestly, really, the majority, I did take a little bit of profit the last cycle, but not near as much as I thought, because again, I thought it was going to keep going a little bit more. But I sacrificed, that was my profit taking. Everything that I sacrificed was profit. I still consider it profit taking in a sense, because I just basically, invested in something brand new. So, yeah, I mean, we all learn different ways. We all get in at different times of the cycle, and you get to visualize it and see it. And I think it may take more than one cycle to be like, no, it's still the same thing. It's not going to, everybody, you keep hearing these people saying it's going to be different. It's going to be different until it's the same again, just, same shit, different cycle. So I really don't know, how to say it any other way, but, I think it's going to play out, as I say it, the same again until it isn't.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is too, you're probably going to have all these other signals that you can look at next year, like just an amalgam of different things to educate you on what the chances should be that this is the cycle top versus this being the cycle top at different times. I mean, we're going to have stuff going on with macroeconomics, obviously Trump being in office. There's all kinds of things going on with crypto in terms with him. Just the timeline of things, how other people are acting in the market. There's going to be so many things that you can use to inform your decision. And, we've had extensive conversations, you and me, before about like different ways of profit taking, and how I am definitely not a fan of like looking at a certain portfolio value and hoping for it, or looking at, I mean, you can use price charts to help, I think, as an element to educate you on when to sell, but it's also a sentiment thing too, and just where people are at. And
Yep.
I want to take all of that, factor in all of that stuff when I'm making those decisions.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of signals out there if you pay attention, and namely one of the biggest ones is people starting to show their portfolio. You start to see screenshots. And when you're screenshotting your portfolio every day because you can't believe how much it's going up, it's a signal that you should probably take a little off the top if you can. And this plays into this too. You know, what I was saying about Bitcoin's dips each cycle becoming less and less volatile. Well, the ETF is definitely gonna help that because of the injection of that money. Now, the bigger companies don't think that they don't know how to play the cycles because they're also going to be taking profits and in hopes of a dip and buying back in and acquiring more of that product. So, you know, don't think that they don't know or they can't control the markets a little bit as well.
Good comment from Conspiracy Crypto. My personal top signal is when my ex starts bragging about buying BTC ETF on her broker's advice.
Mhm.
Yeah, she'll be paying a nice fat expense ratio for that fund
Yeah.
or something like that too, I'm sure. So yeah, good signal there. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it, and you just got to think like, you know, what price are you going to be? Are you willing to walk away with? Like, what if your portfolio only does like a 10x from here? Like, where will you be at? And like, that's why, like, right now, what I've been trying to do, candidly, honestly, is for the next calendar year, and I think everybody should be doing this, depending upon where you are in your life and what your goals are, planning, like not just for how you want to scale out of the market, but what are you going to do? I saw somebody a moment ago, I forget who it was, talking about like getting into stables and like LPing in the meantime and stuff. Like, yeah, like what are your plans? Like, what polls are you going to be into? We're probably going to have more on Pulse Chain that you can, you know, put into get stablecoin yield and stuff like that. Are you going to do that? Are you going to take a large chunk out and go into like safer fiat investments or something like that that might have a little bit more return for your, you know, stable coin fiat? You know, how much are you going to leave in crypto for the next cycle? Like, what are you going to do? These are just things that I don't think can be impressed upon people enough because it's so easy to round trip. Like you just talked about it, Ewok. Like last time around, you were like, "Oh, I thought it was just going to keep going and going and going." And even as you sit here right now, we may get to that point 8, 9, 10 months from now again, where it's like, nah, there's nowhere in sight that this thing is ending. You know, you
Well, it'll
remember
feel
this?
like that. It will feel like
Yeah,
that,
right.
really, because especially when you sit through those 40 to 60 to 70% dips and it just rockets again.
Mhm.
You know, it happened 13 times, I believe it was, that last
Yeah.
cycle. So it starts messing with your mind and thinking, man, this is just going to keep going. Every time it pulls back and reloads, it goes even higher. So that's the hard part. That's the hard part. And again, that's why calling tops is so difficult because when you're in that mindset and you're seeing what's happening, especially like on a weekly basis of a 65% drawdown, and then it does another double within 2 weeks, it's crazy. And it does mess with your mind.
Yeah. Yes. So you got to have a plan. Long story short, there's a lot of different ways we can go about it, but I mean, luckily, I think we'll have the time to all sit here and talk around the fire and figure out, you know, where we're at in the cycle and everything. And yeah, Hex Girl, DCA out a small percentage as the prices increase. I mean, yeah, you can make a little plan for yourself that you can follow, like no matter what. I mean, you know, it honestly is whatever helps you sleep the most at night. Like, you know, what's going to, you know, make you feel comfortable. So, that's just kind of what you have to roll with. So, it will be interesting. We got a big year ahead of us. I mean, that's for sure. That's the positive. And the nice thing is with crypto, I mean, you can kind of screw up a little bit here and there and still be rewarded very handsomely. I mean,
Yep.
you can also get slapped in the face harder than anything you ever had in your life. But the good news is if you stick it out and learn things in the market, you can do a lot better than you can really any other investment vehicle in the entire world. So it's kind of nice to have that.